Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk about my most disappointing books I read in 2024. So I have 9 books or series to talk about, and I do have to say, some of these I actually have given 4 stars, but with most of these, the main reason I was so disappointed in them is because my own expectations were set very, very high. And obviously, I will talk about each individual book once I get to it. So, unlike my worst books of the year, which I'll leave linked for you, where I definitely would not recommend any of those books in that list, with this one, I would recommend most of them, honestly, but I would say temper your expectations before going in, because for whatever reason, I just assumed I was going to love these books, and for whatever reason, it just did not turn out that way. So let's get started. This really is in no particular order, and I will obviously give you the rating and the reasonings why I was disappointed in all of these books. But I would say still don't take this to heart. If you really loved one of these books and it was a disappointment for me, I would also still not recommend watching this if you're any of these authors, because obviously I'm not raving about these books. So do yourself a favor. There's lots of favorites videos you could watch, and some of these books might be on there. So first book I want to talk about is Daydream by Hannah Grace. This one I gave 2.5 stars. I read it for the Goodreads Choice video. I did. This is the 3rd book in the Maple Hill series by her. And the reason I was disappointed with this one is because the 2nd book I read for the Goodreads Choice video of last year, that book turned out to be one of my favorite books I read last year. And I was anticipating it because I did give the 1st book 4.5 stars. I gave the 2nd book 5 stars. So I just assumed I was gonna love it. The only problem is this highlighted for me the issues I had with the first 2, that since I love the romance so much in those books, and also especially since in the 2nd book, I assumed the things that were bothering me was because I hadn't read the 1st book yet, and not because this was going to be a problem I was going to have across the board. Whereas with this book, since I had already read the 1st and 2nd book, and I was not enjoying the romance that much, the problems I had with the excessive amount of side characters was bothering me more and more. And like I said, the romance was not, I didn't feel like there were any stakes in this romance. I didn't feel like there was any chemistry between these 2 characters, and I just didn't really care. This romance is between Henry and Hallie. This is like a friends to lovers, where they meet each other at this romance book club, and he is intrigued by her, but they stay friends. And she wants to write this book, but she realizes she doesn't really have a whole lot of experiences, so he will give her these experiences by going on these dates with her. And she helps him study because he has issues focusing on subjects he doesn't really care that much about. And she has experience with that because her sister has ADHD, and she figured out a way to make studying more palatable for her sister. Like I said, I didn't really believe in this romance. I just didn't care at the end of the day about this romance. And since this is such a long book, it definitely took away from the book for me, because maybe this would have been 3 stars or higher had this been 100 pages shorter. And I also had some other issues with this book, but that's not really why it was such a disappointment. The disappointment was mainly in the romance and the fact that it highlighted some of the writing this author does that didn't really bother me in the first 2 books. Keep Her Safe by QB Tyler. This book I read earlier in the year, which I'll leave that vlog linked for you. And this is a actress bodyguard trope, and that tends to be a favorite trope of mine. I just love a good bodyguard trope. So I had pretty high expectations. I also heard amazing things about QB Tyler in general, and this was my first QB Tyler. So I honestly think my expectations were set way too high, and I should have either started with a different book from her, because in hindsight, I realized that yes, QB Tyler is talked about a lot on book 2, but Keep Her Safe is not really one of the books that people mention a lot. Like I said, you follow this actress and bodyguard, and 5 years ago, when she was either a minor or just barely legal, she came on to our bodyguard and he turned her down. But then both her parents died, and he's been around because he was really the only person there for her. But lately, he has been having these feelings for her, and eventually it's their romance. My biggest problem with this book was kind of the plot. Like, at one point, it became so ridiculous that I really couldn't suspend my disbelief that much. And this romance really didn't stick with me at all. Like, I read it at the beginning of the year, but I have read books at the beginning of the year that I still think about constantly, and this I haven't thought about ever since I finish the book. But I obviously have not written QB off at all. There are a lot of books still of hers on my TBR that I'm very, very interested in. So I just watched my clip for that vlog, and basically I liked the first half of this book, but the second half was not great because they got together really quickly in this book. I gave this book 3 stars, by the way. So I guess the first half was 4 stars for me and the second half was 2 stars. They got together very quickly, and they were a pretty solid couple before the 50% mark, which meant all the angst and conflict came from an external plot, and that external plot to me, which was her having a stalker, was very unbelievable to me. The stalker was turned into a cartoon villain. I knew right away when that character was introduced that that person was the stalker. So this was just not for me. But I am still interested in reading more books by her. Next is The Witch Queen of Halloween by Cressley Cole. The Immortals After Dark series is one of my favorite series of all time. In fact, I binged the entire series in 2023 and I really want to reread this entire series, but this didn't work for me for several reasons. So this is like the 18.5 novel. So you cannot, technically you can read this without having the other ones. You just have to skip the prologue and the epilogue. But this isn't really a good sampling of her writing style because she does enemies to lovers so well, and this was not an enemies to lovers. Basically, you follow Rook and Poppy, and they almost had a thing 2 years ago, but he left her on her day to go be with another woman. Basically, he's a smoke demon, and anytime he sleeps with a woman, she has the power to summon him. And the only way to take away that power is to forsake her publicly. And he tends to not really want to do that because it's embarrassing for the woman. So he constantly keeps getting summoned by these women that he slept with years ago. So of course she is insulted and she kept him at a distance. And for the last 2 years, he's been, watching her but not really doing anything. And now on Halloween, they both go into this haunted house and they have to get out of there on that day. Otherwise they will be stuck there. So they have to work together and also they have to confront their feelings. So this didn't work for me for a couple of reasons. One, I'm never really a fan of her novellas. I feel like she thrives with her full-length novels and her novellas have never been my favorite. Second of all, like I said, I just think she does enemies to lovers very well, and this felt very much friends to lovers. Also, especially comparing this hero to all her other heroes, where they would literally go to the ends of the world to get their woman back, even if she's not interested in them at all, was so different from him just being okay with not being with her for 2 years, even though he could have done something about it earlier. Just didn't work for me. Like, there were literally heroes where their heroine almost killed them, yet they still would follow them around and want to be with them as soon as possible. Yet this hero was fine leaving Poppy be for 2 years. It's just, that's fine in other books, just not with the Immortals After Dark books, where I do, after 19 books, I do have certain expectations. So that's why this didn't work for me. I think let me see what I gave it. I gave it 3 stars. The Rivalry by Nikki Sloan. This book is a sports romance where you follow this girl whose family is very much a football family, where she's the cheerleader of one football team. It's her romance with the quarterback of their rivals team. And he knows about the rivalry. Obviously, he's not that big a fan of the other team, but it's not really ingrained in his blood like it is for her. Like, it's not like his family, like, they like the team because he's on it, not because they have this like long relationship with the team. Whereas her father was the coach of her team and her mom is like a big fan. I read other Nikki Sloan books, and in fact, The Frat Boy was one of my favorite books I read last year. And I know I love her stories. This didn't work for me mainly because of the heroine. I just thought she was so unbelievably dismissive of him. I felt like she was over the top and unreasonable. Like, I get it that your family would not be happy, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like he actually, like, he just plays for the rival team. It's a college team at that. Like, at one point, like, next year, he's gonna graduate and he's gonna play for some other team. Like, I just didn't understand why she made such a big deal out of it. And because she was doing that, she was constantly putting him down, putting his entire team down, and just disrespecting him in ways. So I could not stand this heroine. The hero was cute. I liked him. And obviously the smut scenes were great because she does them she's very good at writing that. But I wasn't rooting for them because I felt like he would deserve better. Like, I honestly didn't understand why he loved her so much because, I mean, yeah, she was hot, but like, I don't know. I just felt like if you cannot get your girlfriend to support you, then what's the point? You know what I mean? So my annoyance for her definitely ruined the book for me. But I gave it 3 stars. And I would say, I don't know if I would pick it up. I would say either pick up a different Nikki Sloan or just a different sports romance because there are so many of them. Read one of those. Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This makes me so sad because I know this was a lot of people's favorite book they read last year. I do have to say, I read the second book and that book worked better for me. I gave that book 5 stars. This one I gave 3 stars. So you follow Sloane and Rowan, and both of them are serial killers. And then they meet each other during one of their serial killings, I guess. And then they make this deal where every year they'll play this game where Rowan's brother will pick out a serial killer, and then whichever gets to that person first will win, I guess. They do that over the course of a couple years, and then throughout that time they realize they like each other and then they fall in love. To me, this didn't work for 2 different reasons. The biggest reason was that I felt like the whole romance took place off page. Like, amount of page-wise, maybe it was similar to Leather and Lark in that it took the same amount of pages in the actual book for them to finally actually do something. But in real life, this took like 3 years, and I don't like that kind of slow burn. It's like, why haven't you made a move? Both of you are pretty attractive. You have similar interests. Why did you not just, like, I don't know why it took 3 years for them to finally make a move. And also, I felt like, so this is marketed as a dark romance / rom-com. And to me, that didn't work that much. I just felt like it was way more focused on the rom-com and not as much as on the darker side. Whereas when these two do have dark reasons why they are the way they are, like they have dark pasts, which made them into the people they are. And I just wanted to explore that part. I didn't want to, like, I don't know, the rom-com things just didn't work for me. And I felt like Leather and Lark did that better for me, like the balance of rom-com but also dark. I know that is not a popular opinion. I know a lot of people did prefer the rom-com stuff, so definitely take this with a grain of salt. If you're interested in this book, pick it up. Don't let my opinion deter you. So I gave this book 3 stars. I just preferred Leather and Lark over this one. Praise by Sarah Kate. So I gave this book 4 stars. I would still highly, highly recommend it. I think this didn't work for me because the hype for this book was so real. Like, I have this recommendations list, and for a long time this series was at the tippy top of that recommendations list. I know this is a lot of people's favorite series, and I do think other books in this series will work for me. Just the first book, it still worked for me. It was still 4 stars. I just felt like it was a little bit overhyped. And also the trope tends to not be my favorite, which is ex-boyfriend's dad. Okay, so basically you follow Emerson and Charlie and Emerson's son recently broke up, and they are moving out of their house, but for romance reasons, she needs to get the deposit back from his dad. But his dad is a member of the Salacious Players Club, which is a kink app plus sex club where you can get matched based on your kinks, and then you can meet up at the safe spot in the sex club. And he has a praise kink, and he has like a thing with his submissives where they also are his secretary. When she gets there, he thinks that his new sub arrived. So when he walks into his office and sees her there, he's like, get on your knees. And she does. And then once, like after a couple minutes, he realizes, wait, she's not the sub. She's my son's ex. So he apologizes profusely, and then he gives her the check and she can go. And then eventually he actually hires her as his actual secretary without the sub part, and she agrees. And then obviously since she's his secretary and he's a member of this kink club, she finds out more about kinks and her own, and eventually they start doing stuff. I do have to say, for an ex-boyfriend's dad, I felt like he was honestly the best dad I read in similar stories. I feel like he actually cared about his son, and he cared about what his son thought. I feel like in those ex-boyfriend's dad stories, I just cannot suspend my disbelief that a father would do that to his son. I know it's kind of, obviously, what better way to get revenge on your cheating ex is by actually becoming his stepmom. I get the fantasy of that, but I just cannot suspend I get it from the girl's point of view. Like, for the girl, I'm like, yeah, you go, girl, like, get your revenge. But for the dad, what kind of father would sleep with his son's ex? Like, I feel like he has to do the legwork in convincing his son, and also getting his son to forgive him. And I felt like Emerson did that well enough, especially since it was part of the third act conflict. Charlie kind of annoyed me, and I felt like I just didn't believe in that romance. I just thought it was more surface level and more lust filled, which is fine. Obviously, we're talking about a erotic romance, kinky sex club book, but I have read enough erotic romances where, yes, the sex part is very well developed, but also the romance. I just feel like other books in this series are going to be my favorite. Mainly Mercy is one I'm very interested in, and also the third one, the MMF one. Give me more. Paris was not a bad book. I definitely understand why it was so popular. I just think, for me, other books in the series are going to be my favorite. Ensnared by the Werewolf. Let me see who it's by. By Lillian Lark. So I just heard so many good things about this book from a lot of different people, a lot of people that I trust, and I just don't think Ensnared by the Werewolf was the book I should have started with, because it was a novella. Yet the novella focused way more on the plot than the romance. You follow this witch who has to help this werewolf break his curse, and then while they're doing that, they fall in love. I didn't believe in that romance. I didn't care. And the only interesting characters in this book were the side characters who already had their book. Like, while reading this book, the only book I wanted to read was Deceived by the Gargoyles, which is probably the book I should have started with. I just was looking for a good, like a smutty werewolf good time, but this didn't deliver on that front, and also not on the plot, and also not on the romance. So this just didn't work for me. But like I said, I am looking forward to reading other books in this series. So hopefully the full-length novels will work better for me. Then I have a whole series that I'm very sad about. And it's interesting because I have given some books in here 5 stars. And it's, let me hold it up. The Full Metal Alchemist books. So the manga. So I read the first 6. So actually the first book started off as a 2. I should have just stopped at this one. But like I said, I continued on, and I have given 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, and I think at least 1 5 stars. Okay, so let me actually tell you what this is about. So you follow these 2 brothers who, during an experiment trying to get their mother back, one of them lost his entire body and the other one lost an arm and a leg. They're now on a mission to get Alphonse his body back and maybe Alric's limbs. And while they're doing that, they meet all these people. And also there are these bad guys that seem to be based on the 7 deadly sins. So I've heard so many good things about this series and the anime for such a long time. One of the things that is emphasized so much is the brotherly love that I was just very much looking forward to. And I don't know, for some reason it just didn't work for me. I just felt like anytime there was a big fighting sequence, my eyes just glazed over. I just didn't care. And I think my expectations, especially like the brotherly love expectations, were so high that it could never really compare. So that's why I was disappointed, because I picked this book up assuming I was gonna love it, and then especially starting with this one where this was a 2 star and then continuing on and the other one's not really gripping me that much. I think what I'm gonna do, and this was my plan early in the year, I still haven't done that, is to actually watch the anime and see what I think then, because in movies, TV shows, cartoons, or anime, I guess, fighting sequences are fine because like there's music involved and it's not that long usually. Whereas with books and animes, I just get bored easily. So I think I'm gonna just watch the anime, and if I really, really love the anime, I might go back to the manga, because I do think these editions are beautiful. And like a lot of people love this. Like my brother really loves this anime, so I think, and I trust him because we do share similar tastes in shows and movies. So yeah, I still need to do that. Maybe during the holidays I might start watching this anime. Last, and honestly most certainly not least, is A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. So this one I read for my Romantasy vlog, which I'll leave links for you. I gave this book 4 stars, so it's definitely not bad. I would still recommend it, but I read the Bridge Kingdom series by her, and I absolutely love that series, and especially the romance. And I just had such high expectations for this one, and it didn't really meet them in the romance department. So you follow Freya, who is this shield maiden, and there was this prophecy that whoever controls the shield maiden will rule the land. So one day the Jarl finds her and wants to marry her, even though he already has a wife. And then she actually falls in love with his son Bjorn, and it's their romance. This to me, I don't know. First of all, I didn't really love the romance that much. Like, I just didn't care that much. Yes, there were some scenes that were hot, but especially comparing it to the Bridge Kingdom, like, this romance definitely paled in comparison. And also, I was a little bit lost on the plot too. So hopefully the second book I will love a little bit more. But still, it's 4 stars. Like I said, it's not bad at all. But I would say if you're debating whether or not you should start with this one or start with the Bridge Kingdom, I would say start with the Bridge Kingdom. Although maybe you should do it the other way around. So starting with this one and then ending with the Bridge Kingdom, because in my opinion, the Bridge Kingdom is just better. But like, out of all of them, this one I will and have recommended over and over and over again. Definitely not a bad book, but I was a little bit disappointed because my expectations for it were very high. So yeah, those were my most disappointing books of 2024. Definitely let me know in comments below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. If you love them, that's obviously okay. I definitely liked some of them. But leave all your thoughts in the comments below. And also, I would really love to know what was your most disappointing book you read in 2024. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.